All right, the 25th League, which is Heist. So it added 28 new unique items, including one designed by a supporter, 11 new div cards designed by our supporters, added 90 new replica unique items, which are twists on existing unique items. These can only be obtained through Heist, added more than 800 alternate quality variants of existing and new support and skill gems, added a new vendor recipe for a special support gem. Good luck. For the Xena mods, we have Fortune Favors the Brave, Abyss, Domination, Bloodlines, Nemesis, Beyond, and Blight and Delirium. In this league, a ritual altar can be found in each zone. Interacting with the altar encloses the player in a ritual circle, and they must fight a wave of enemies. Rituals award tribute, which can be exchanged for items, including exclusive item bases. Currency is Ritual Splinter, Ritual Vessel Fragment, and then there's a fragment, the Bloodfelled Vessel. Added a ton of base items. These are just the top end. There's like 2 below this, I believe. There's Storm Rider Boots, Dream Quest Slippers, Brimstone Threads, Pendant Mask, Blizzard Crown, Arcane Demon Crown, Sinestral Gloves, Nexus Gloves, and Deliberation Gauntlets. It added the following uniques: Hand of the Fervent, Black Fame, Survivor's Guild, Corda's Regulator, and Rot Blood Promise. This is the Heist cheat sheet that goes through what everybody can do and what their reward tiers are for the various zones, as well as who can do those zones. And then also at the bottom, let me remove me for a second. It has the additional items, how to get the best mods. This is kind of expensive to set up, but if you're going to do a lot of Heist, it's very, very worth it. So there is a link to the Heist League, a link to Heist, and a link to Grand Heist in case you did not play Heist League or would like to learn more about it. Heist was well received. Players, for the most part, enjoyed the mechanic after the initial changes. Originally, if a mob was killed, it raised your threat level, so you carried everything to the end and then killed them, which is, again, counterintuitive to an AARPG. Would have liked to see a little more diversity in the alt quality of gems. Some mechanical changes would have been really cool and help with build diversity. For instance, if we got a lower DPS version of Blade Flurry with old mechanics, or a lower DPS version of Winter Orb with old mechanics, like the mechanically changing things, this is a good way to mechanically alter gems in a way, like especially for underplayed skills, right? If I was GGG, if I was if I was like in charge of, if I was the person that was tasked to improve old skill gems, for instance, what I would do is take a skill gem that has not seen play in the last 5 years over 3%, because I feel like just about anything can get there. But if you look at the past 5 years, let's not go that far. Look at the past year, the past calendar life of a year, and you look at what skill gems are the least utilized in the past year. And I would put those on a spreadsheet, and I would go into the coast and click on the skill gem and ask myself, how did I feel doing this? And I would do that for all of them, and you're going to notice a pattern. It doesn't feel good. Then I would look at the numbers, and then I would do like the opposite. I would go try to kill an in-game boss and like really min-max a build around it. And I would try to go kill an in-game boss and see how that felt. And then I'd go try to do a simulacrum and see how that felt. And I almost guarantee you, in one of those 3 instances, it's going to feel awful. Absolutely awful. And that's the reason players don't play that skill, is because we've learned that it just has a significant shortcoming. So then you ask yourself, okay, what can I do to change it where these things feel good? And a great way like to experiment with that is these alt quality gems. Like you can mechanically change completely how a gem works with the alt quality. So maybe Glacial Hammer, instead of it being this big thwack that hits and it freezes stuff, right? What if Glacial Hammer instead worked kind of like Lightning Strike, where you hit the ground and then Ice Spear little freezing bolts came off of it, right? We have one of those for lightning. We have, well, I mean, Frostblades is kind of that, but not really, because Frostblades is relegated to claws and it's more about projectile chaining. So that's kind of where my thought process would go is, okay, well, why can I make, or can we make Glacial Hammer a slam skill? Oh wait, we have Ice Crash, which is already basically the same thing in a slam skill. Do we have a, or if neither of those is sounding appealing, why doesn't Glacial Hammer have a built-in elemental equilibrium? So it, maybe you hit one guy, but you hit him so hard and you freeze him so hard that it spreads freeze waves to everything around it. And maybe you even crank up your elemental equilibrium area of effect on top of that skill jump. And then all of a sudden it went from being complete garbage and unplayable to something that's actually really fun to play. Because, and then to make up for that, what you do with multi-strike is you make it where multi-strike works with Glacial Hammer, but it also cuts down that freeze radius every time you hit. So it makes it where multi-strike's really good for bossing, but it's really bad for trying to clear enemies. Try and clear enemies, you want to hit once and it just goes shh. And if you want to kill bosses, then you can add multi-strike in. Well, now you made it where the build is mechanically different, but in a good way. And I think that's the same with basically like every strike skill that doesn't have a projectile probably needs a drastic rework at this point in time, because there's too many mobs on screens for strike skills to be used, unless they're just holding out for PoE 2, because they're thinking that, oh, well, we can add melee splash and ancestral call into strike skills now so they can kind of clear. And when PoE 2 comes out, then everybody will do that, and then they'll have a boss setup that's really good, and then this big clear speed thing for not. But the problem with that kind of mentality is you're making the game worse now for it maybe to be better later, when if you make it really good now, then it gets even better later. Because then when you go to clear speed, then you could put in AoE and stuff like that, which you're not going to want to use those things if you're just normal mapping. But just something to think about, something that may make the game substantially better. And it doesn't have to come on the base Glacial Hammer. It could be one of the alternate quantities. Is it adds, increased radius of 20 to elemental elements, or base radius of 20, or base radius of 28. So like you're freezing like the screen. That would be sick. I would play Glacial Hammer probably if that was the case. I didn't talk about the worst part of Heist. Mechanically, Heist is awful because you have to re-level and re-gear every single time. The re-gearing I don't see is really a problem. The re-leveling is really a pain in the rear. And I think if you're going to have a mechanic that requires levels, that you just give us everybody at rank 5 right off the bat. I don't know why it's necessary, because that doesn't encourage more people to play Heist. It encourages less people to play Heist. Because people are like, oh, I don't feel like leveling these people up. I guess I just won't play Heist, is what ends up happening. And it actually hurts player retention. It doesn't help it. So kind of just keep that in mind with Heist specifically, like with anything that requires you to level up something else. You prevent more people from engaging with that mechanic than you encourage people to engage in that mechanic after the league is done. It's the same thing with like going and chasing the crafts every single league. Like, I enjoy crafting, but there's a point where I'm just like, I don't care. Because I'm so burnt out, because I've done it for years now. The same thing. And before that, we complained because of the old unlock system. Right? It's like a constant thing where they haven't learned that you don't need that level of gatekeeping. Or another idea here, tie Heist player ranking to your character level. And that cuts down on the level 68 farming, or level 62 farming, or whatever. Right? 2 birds, 1 stone. 2 birds, 1 stone. So make it where at level 68, your Heist characters are level 3. They can't go any higher. Then at level 70, yeah, let's say level 70, they can go up to level 4, and then level 80 plus, they're at level 5. Like, more things should be related to your player level and not tediousness. And the game would be so much better. The game would be so much better if more things were just gated behind player level and not gated behind having to do all this extra work. Because the reason they're gated behind trying to do all this extra work is to keep low-level people from getting it. They don't want you at 68 to have trigger wands. Fine. You think level 75 is appropriate. So when I hit 75, just give me trigger wand. And you kill both birds with 1 stone, right? You make it where you unlock everything. Just unlock everything. It doesn't need to be gated. And you would have people playing a lot longer without having silly things that occupy a lot of time and cut down on the amount of fun people are having, because it's not fun to level Heist characters. It's not rewarding. It's not engaging. It's not fun. So take it out. Take out the stuff that impacts someone being able to get into the mechanic and enjoy it. Take that level of it out and just make it where they get to engage at the highest point available to them, and level gate it if you need to. Like, that's fine. No one's going to complain about level gating it. Most people are going to be perfectly fine if you're saying, oh yeah, you can't have trigger one until 75. Okay, that's reasonable. No, you can't have trigger one ever because we're going to make it rare and hard to find. That's not so cool. Right? Or you're knowledge gating it. Don't knowledge gate things either. Like, just make it where people get access to it. Same thing with Lord's Labyrinth. It's not necessary. It's just not necessary. Even though you had huge improvements to it, it just showed even more that the mechanic isn't needed. Because if you just let people who reach tier, whatever yellow tier maps get their ascendancy, it's just fine. And then on the next playthrough, guess what everybody did? As soon as they hit 68, probably before they killed Kadava, they went and did Uber, because the content isn't challenging like it used to be. So when the content isn't challenging, you're better off removing it than double downing in making people go through it over and over again. Just a thought. Just a thought. Make it where it's easier for people to experience these things. It really does help the game grow. All right, y'all have a great one. I'll catch you on the next one, guys.